A reading from the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 25. Paul appeals to Caesar. 3 days after his arrival in the province, Festus went up to Jerusalem from Caesarea. The chief priests and leaders of the Jews informed him of the case against Paul. They urged him, as a favor against Paul, to have him transferred to Jerusalem. They were setting up an ambush to kill him on the way. But Festus replied that Paul was in custody in Caesarea and that he would be going back there shortly himself. He said, "Let your authorities come down with me, and if there is anything wrong about the man, they can bring a charge against him." After staying with them for 8 or 10 days at the most, he went down to Caesarea, and the next day he took his seat on the tribunal and had Paul brought in. As soon as Paul appeared, the Jews who had come down from Jerusalem surrounded him, making many serious accusations which they were unable to substantiate. Paul made his defense. "I have committed no offense either against the Jewish law or against the temple or against Caesar." Festus was anxious to do the Jews a favor, so he said to Paul, "Are you willing to go up to Jerusalem and be tried on these charges before me there?" But Paul replied, "I take my stand at the tribunal of Caesar, and this is where I should be tried. I have done the Jews no wrong, as you very well know. If I am guilty of committing any capital crime, I do not ask to be spared death. But if there is nothing in their accusations against me, no one has a right to surrender me to them. I appeal to Caesar." Then Festus conferred with his advisers and replied, "You have appealed to Caesar? To Caesar you shall go." Paul appears before King Agrippa. Some days later, King Agrippa and Bernice arrived in Caesarea to pay their respects to Festus. Since they were staying there for several days, Festus put Paul's case to the king, saying, "There is a man here left behind in custody by Felix. And while I was in Jerusalem, the chief priests and elders of the Jews laid information against him, asking for his condemnation. But I told them that Romans are not in the habit of surrendering any man until the accused had confronted his accusers and had been given an opportunity to defend himself against the charge. So they came here with me, and I wasted no time, but took my seat on the tribunal the very next day and had the man brought in." When the accusers took their stand, they did not charge him with any of the crimes I had expected. But they had some disagreement or other with him about their own superstition and about a dead man called Jesus, whom Paul alleged to be alive. Since I was at a loss over a disagreement on these matters, I asked him if he would be willing to go to Jerusalem to be tried there on this issue. But Paul put in an appeal for his case to be reserved for the judgment of his imperial majesty. So I ordered him to be held until I could send him to Caesar. Agrippa said to Festus, I should like to hear the man myself. He answered, Tomorrow you shall hear him. So the next day, Agrippa and Bernice arrived in great state and entered the audience chamber, attended by the tribunes and the city notables. Then, at Festus's command, Paul was brought in. So Festus said, King Agrippa, and all here present with us, you see before you the man about whom the whole Jewish community has petitioned me, both in Jerusalem and here, shouting that he ought not to remain alive. For my own part, I established that he has committed no capital crime, but when he himself appealed to the emperor, I decided to send him. But I have nothing reliable that I can write to his imperial majesty about him. That is why I have produced him before you all, and before you in particular, King Agrippa, so that after the investigation, I may have something to write. It seems to me senseless to send a prisoner without also indicating the charges against him. The word of the Lord.